Well, hello everyone. I'm Christina, and this is another episode of Health, Wealth, and Happiness Interviews to Inspire. I am so excited that we have our panel here today with Renee, Ruth, and Rachel. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Christina, thanks for having me here. This is an amazing group of women, and I'm excited to be a part of what is happening in your podcast, especially early. I feel like something is building, something new and energetic and exciting. And so I just want to preface what I have to say about myself with that. I am an introvert, so I never like talking about myself. I always prefer to talk about other people. And Ruth, boy, um, I'll get to that. But my name is Renee Burkett. I'm an adjunct professor of health and exercise science, currently on hiatus because I've been taking care of some family. I am a trade and career writer, and I'm actually an aspiring videographer and working towards some goals that I'm not going to tell you right now. I am doing an abundance of ghostwriting and actually quite a bit of content writing on the largest social media platform in the country for business people. I'll let you guess which one that is. Um, and I am I guess my third career is Pilates and yoga. So I think that this is a wonderful mix of folks. We share things that are so similar. So I'm excited about that. I love the connection of humanity and movement, humanity of and laughter. And so I can't wait to see what happens today. Thank you.
Thanks, Renee, for that juicy tidbit about you. I'm Ruth Lee. I'm a career transformation coach, and I help professionals who are looking for more meaning and fulfillment in their careers. These people tend to feel like they've done all the right things, but at the end of the day, they still feel like something's missing. Like they know that their life is meant for more. And I love supporting people through that, the unknown and the mystery, and guiding them to their deeper purpose and what really truly lights them up. When I'm not coaching, I also teach yoga and meditation. I love building intentional communities, either in person or online, such as this. And I also really love connecting with the earth, getting my hands in the soil, having the soil just stuck in the nail. And I co-own a farmstead called the Peaceful Pea.
My name is Rachel Christie. I am an esthetician, currently by trade. So I'll give my pitch. My name is Rachel Christie. I'm the owner of Street Smart Beauty. My mission is to be your community neighborhood SD bestie, your resource for all things skincare and waxing. But outside of that, I think that what you all have shared is beyond what we do. There's a need to, I think we feel almost compelled to connect and compelled to not only bring other women forward with us, but I think we also are always like having our hand up, waiting for someone to grab us, right? And pull us up to where they're going, right? Because I think we all realize that there are people whose experiences and wisdom, is such that, it just comes with time. So I'm always looking for myself. I know it's got kind of on tangent, but I am looking for a community of women. I think I've really struggled to find that in my own path because it hasn't been until I kind of became an esthetician that I was able to really surround myself with mostly just women, right? And establishing that community of women. Before this, I was a naval officer. I was in IT. mostly male dominated type environment. So being part of a network and community of women is relatively a new experience, but I'm really excited about it. So that's me.
Yeah, one of the things I think is fascinating about all of you is you have come from another place. You've come from different career paths to get where you are today. If you'd like to share some of that, please do.
I think so yes, I started my career well, the bulk of I was a history of political science major, and then I became a mom. And I needed a job with benefits. So I joined the Navy. That's what I did. So I went in as a naval officer. I will say that it was probably one of the most challenging careers I ever had. Not just as a woman, like, so whatever stories you hear, you should believe them, when it comes to women's experiences in the military. But more than that, too, it was really hard to, I don't want to say they do a good job, but they're very focused on stripping women of their femininity, right? Because they don't want you to see gender. Like they just want everybody to be like a soldier or a sailor or whatever that is. And I fought that. So I was a big pain in the ass. Listen, I will say that people say, well, when did you when did you leave the Navy? I left as soon as I could, but the truth is they were probably happy to see me go because I was just oppositional all the way through because I could not I could not balance who I was as a woman and who they wanted me to be as a sailor. I just could not. I was never in the same. I just could not get there, and I just refused to let go of my femininity. In fact, when I first went in, I went through OCS, which is Officer Candidate School in Pensacola, and one of the things they do to the women when we get there is they cut off all of our hair. And so when I got out, oh my gosh, I didn't cut my hair until last year. Yes. Last year. I did not cut my hair until I mean, I cut it, I had it trimmed, but I have very, very long hair from the time I got out because, and that's kind of how it starts. So I had a hard time rectifying, maintaining my femininity in that very heavily male dominated environment. And then I went into IT, equally as as male dominated, different, but still not a lot of women in that industry. And it was really hard bouncing around, trying to find, very difficult to find community. You would think that, like, if there's such a small amount of us, like we would just glom together. But that's not the way it is, right? Like, how many women do we meet and we're like, yeah, we're not gonna be friends. We're all different. We all have a different path. Just because, we share certain anatomy doesn't mean everybody's like a fit. And so it really was hard to find, I think, community, but also it took me decades to soften from those experiences as well. Because you can't be soft in those environments. And what happens is we end up becoming very hard, kind of mimicking masculinity. Yeah. So when I had the chance finally, then in my last job, I was an office manager for a neurology practice. And I just was like, you know what? It just got to a point where you have those moments where you just knock over the china cabinet and you're like, I don't care what breaks. I don't care if everything in that thing breaks. I don't care how valuable any of that stuff in that China cabinet of life is. I am tipping that thing over and I'm just going to leave. And I'm going to leave the mess behind and walk away. I'm not even going to clean it up, right? So I did that, and I went forward with opening up the SSB studio, which is where I offer my services. But it was probably, looking back, it was the best decision that I made for myself.
Mm.
Mhm.
Wow, so powerful to hear how you went on the journey to almost silencing the femininity to really embracing it and allowing yourself to be in community with other females and embracing that side of you. I can share a little bit about my career journey. I kind of earned my stripes to become a career transformation coach, starting from um, my own world. So I was an accountant, and I went to a good school, had a career that my family was proud of, worked really hard, earned the money, had those benefits. And I lived a double life. I was truly deeply unhappy, and not a lot of people knew. I was also um, partying a lot, doing drugs, drinking. I was living this double life because I was so unhappy with where I was. And I did all the right things that I thought I should do in order to feel happy, but I still wasn't. So I was like, oh crap, what now? And in 2014, that was my wake up call. A childhood friend had gotten into a car accident and passed away. And on the same day, my grandpa got admitted to the hospital and he never left. And that double whammy of a day really made me realize how impermanent my life was. And I realized I really wasn't living the life that I wanted. So I started to contemplate and unravel. And during that year, I met people who are living their passion. And it was such a wild idea. Someone loving what it is that they do and helping the world in a big way, like mind blown. And I was so drawn, like magnetized to these people who were carving out a life for themselves. And like, I want to do that. And so I quit my job. I booked a one-way ticket to India, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I just had to go forward into the unknown to discover what it was that lit me up, that made me happy, that made me want to like give back and contribute in a meaningful way. And while I was in India, I found Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent retreat. And I dove right in and found really that was such a transformational time for me because I found that missing puzzle piece that made everything fit together. And like for me, I was like wanting to find the answers, wanting to know the clarity. Why are we here? What is our purpose? And this technique was a tool to go inwards and to discover the answers for myself. And that's what I offer people now through yoga, meditation, and coaching is how to go inwards and to uncover those nuggets of wisdom and deep knowing that we all have, and to bring that out into the world because that's what we're here for, and that is, I believe, our biggest gift to the world.
I feel so enriched just listening to both of you. Rachel, I want to speak to something that you said because I believe that there's a movement. I am very privileged to be in a position where I meet a lot of very advanced leaders, C-suite business owners, and there is a new movement in the science world, in the tech world, in the business world, for women to come with their femininity to the table.
Mhm.
And to speak, I won't quote her and I won't give her name, but because I didn't ask her, but I'm thinking about one individual who is also, Ruth, to what you're saying now, coaching women, but she is saying this: men come with their authentic selves, and it's time for us. It's 2024. Come with your feminine energy. And then she talked about how it's collaborative and it's empathetic and it's inclusive, it's caring, and and it's intuitive, which sometimes we need in the marketplace. We need intuition instead of just that sort of logical reasoning. And then Ruth, I've been inspired. I was watching you online one day saying, the hardest thing for me is to put myself on camera, and I'm watching you going, she is so polished. I have no idea what she is talking about. Because you are bringing such calm substance, and it's beautiful. So I am also, as a career coach, I would say, of many people, sometimes just because I see this person's vision, and honestly, Christina, that's some of what I've seen in your life. I almost feel like there's a heat and a fire building here, not a bad kind of fire, like one that's on the beach where people gather and share the beauty. And so I want to add that my journey is a journey right now. I stepped away from some of my own life because I had family who needed, and there was no one else. And I stepped up because there was no one else to step up. And I've done that often in my life. And so I took some of the things that mattered quite a bit to me and I set them aside. I didn't set them aside. I set them aside with love, not necessarily willingly, if you know what I mean. Sort of that combination of reluctant, but knowing that it was the right thing to do. And so now in my journey, I am at a place where I feel as though I'm in my third round of becoming, and I'm not there yet. And so I could tell you so many stories about becoming, but I want to tell you a little bit about the movement thing. From the time I was a little girl, I wanted to dance. Now, I grew up in a family where there was no dance studios anywhere. There was nothing like that. And we were sort of brought up by a Navy dad. By the way, speaking about the Navy, my dad was a two-tour Navy guy, and I'll try not to cry. But he is one of my heroes. And he was not an officer. He was a telecommunications professional who ended up in the Middle East decoding during one of the wars. And he's recently passed away. Well, I say recently, it's been several years, but it seems like it's yesterday. But what I found that was this desire to move. And I think that's one of the other things that connected Christina and I. From that desire to move, as I grew into adulthood, and like, I'm going to have to sit in an office. Okay, I need to do something with all this vital energy, because I ended up becoming certified, not in just yoga, and I don't mean to say the word just, but not in yoga, not in Pilates. I started out in like kickboxing, step. I was doing step. Anybody remember step aerobics? I cut my teeth on step aerobics, like, up, up, down, down, in a room crowded at 6 p.m. where there were women and men who were like, you better work us out as hard as possible. And I would be like, oh, I'm going to bring it. And we would just be drenched. But in that, I found part of myself, which was this authentic, it's both a dynamo as a leader, but it's also out an observer, because I would actually consider myself more of an introvert. And so I love to observe, and I would have these out of body experiences where I would teach this choreography and we would do it over and over. And we finally learned 40 minutes of choreography. And then I go, take it from the top. And I would watch these people and we would just go. And it was almost like I would be up out of my body, looking down on the room going, And it was like a symphony of movement, a sea going with the waves and everything. And I was like, I wasn't even in control anymore. It was something that I can't even describe. So when I meet people who are in movement, and Ruth, to speak to the thing about yoga, when I teach yoga from the meditation side, there's that place of just silent finding that I absolutely love. So I'm so excited for this synergy that we share today. Wow.
Reference to becoming, because right, we're always like, there are phases in our life where we are like, I was definitely in my 20s. I felt like, well, when I went to the military, I'm like, I am becoming, right? That was like my first step into becoming. And then in my mid 30s, there was a moment of like, and I'm kind of, that was the beginning of like becoming who I am now, right? That's when I made my first batch of soap, right?
Mm.
And got into natural skincare and started coming down the path that led me to where I am today. Um, yeah, I just wanted to, I really do resonate with this idea of like, we're never just one thing. And there are these pivotal moments where we become more of who we are, right? Sometimes there's moments of recovering, right? Recovering what we've lost or forgotten about ourselves. And there are moments we need to go back and get that, right? But then there's that taking that and then moving forward with that and becoming something or someone else. And then when you're talking about the being the aerobics, their step instructor, I was a spin instructor for a while. And that was part of like kind of like the becoming, that was part of like my transition to who I am today. Because when you're taking people through something like really really hard, so you with the 40-minute choreography, take it from the top. Mine was, they hated it, but I would do a lot of RPM type trading, and and the RPM is, it's speed, but the speed is dictated by how much resistance you're putting on to the bike, right? So I would take people to that point where they could go pretty, at a nice pace, but it was just the slightest bit tension, right? And then I would hold them there for the whole 50 minutes. I would just hold them there, and they couldn't stand it. But for me, it was like, it's kind of just that moment of just where by time they were done, they weren't thinking about where they were going. They weren't thinking about what they had to do next. They weren't thinking about what would happen at work. By time I was finished, it's kind of like yoga. In a way, it was like yoga in that it was like meditation in motion. By time I was done with them, all they were doing is focusing on the breath, right? And it's amazing that when you are teaching and as an instructor, when you can take people to even something, be like, they come in for the exercise, but then you take them to a point where like you take them to an experience that they didn't even think they could get from a class like aerobics. Like the fact that they knocked out that routine, they were probably like, yes, right? But I think too, there's something it was my first introduction, I think, to really kind of being in like the instructor trainer position for me. I think because up to that point I didn't really do too much of it. But yeah, those are like neat moments in my life that I look back at. I'm like, that was pretty cool.
I'm so curious if you guys want to share, like you're talking about the resistance and becoming, and this curiosity is bubbling up. What is that place of resistance and becoming for you? Like, where do you see your growth edge and the desire to move beyond it?
It's hard to describe that moment. It's like an itch. It's like it's like this desire with nowhere to really go. But you keep looking. You're looking for the outlet. Like for me, I'm looking for the thing that clicks, right? Like I have this thing, I want to share it with the world. Like I guess it's safe to say it in this space. I don't know what people are going to think when they listen to it. I'm big energy, right? I'm big. I'm constantly condensing it. I'm constantly zipping myself up, right? I'm constantly having to ground myself, right? But there are moments when I just want to, as my one of my yoga instructors, Ugoma, would say, she's like, let it rip, girl. Just let it rip, right? And for me, I'm at this moment where I want to let it rip. And it's just finding that plate, that it's finding that moment, it's finding that outlet, that opportunity to like let it rip, but in a way, but in a way that not only helps me grow, but is going to benefit people around me. Does that make sense? The expression of it, and to have it out there and received and
And
shared.
the safe space. I
Yeah.
think that is one of the things, because I know you. You know, Rachel is absolutely a bundle of energy, and I can see how some people like, whoa. I don't know how to take that. And yeah, and what you're saying is the safe space to be who you are. You're not being anybody else, but having to, like you said, kind of zip it, tone it down a little bit. And it's an interesting place because we have to balance ourselves, don't we? When depending on our room. And I'm so happy that you said this was a safe space to share that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. What about you, Renee? Where do you find the growth edge and your next level in becoming?
There are so many things I am, as you ask, what you were asking that, Ruth, I have so many things I could share. And and I did become a dancer and I still dance, but here's my thing. I think first of all, I am a warrior. And I found that I am, so to your point, Rachel, I'm not willing to dumb myself down anymore. I'm not willing to be small just because it might bother somebody else. In fact, I just think, and I'm not talking about being rude, or I'm not talking about that, but what I'm talking about is when we are who we really are, and I think, Ruth, you were saying this on one of your broadcasts, because I catch your broadcast, by the way, is that when we are wholly authentic and we embrace that person, the people who aren't supposed to be around us, they'll drop away. And the people that are, we will find each other. And there is something amazing about the gathering of not just like-mindedness, but recognizing your power. And so, Ruth, I think the thing is, and when I say power, here's what I don't mean. I don't mean ego. In fact, quite the opposite. I would almost rather be the one serving in the back of the room. Would you like a drink? Because I don't have to validate myself. But I do want to move into the place where I heard this thing, and I think I'll finish with this. I heard once somebody say, what is humility? Now, if I was to ask you this, in fact, I would like for each of us to answer that question in what you think, but here's my take on it. And this is what I heard. I used to think that humility was being under, was being less than, was being small. And there is still that beauty of, may I take your coat, please? Can I get you something to drink? That's beautiful. That's not humility, but what I heard someone say is this, who is a dynamic leader and a speaker. And this is what he said. He said, I used to think that humility was taking up the least amount of space, like on the planet. And then he realized that true humility is to take up the amount of room that you were destined to take up. So fill up that space. And Rachel, if that space is this, then fill it up, honey. And if that space is this, up, then go. But I do know that when I walk into a room, like for instance, I just got done on a long tour, if you will, serving my mom, who was completely physically disabled, had a good mind, but she couldn't do anything for herself. She couldn't stand up. She couldn't sit down. She couldn't feed herself. Well, she could eat, but she couldn't make anything. Humbling, but not a bad humble, a beautiful humble, a humble that I would do all over again. That kind of way that I showed up, I couldn't walk in and go like, ba-bam. No, but the power is there. So Ruth, my next step is to fill up all the space that I'm intended to.
Beautiful.
What about you, Ruth? What is that? To answer your own question first, and then what is humility to you? How does that?
I really resonate with both of you, Rachel and Renee, what you shared, the letter rip and taking the space that I'm destined to. That really feels like what the next chapter for me is. And something I'd like to add is a part of embracing this femininity that is sort of new for me is receivership. So instead of like, and there is the masculine of like doing, taking action, being, bold in a masculine way. And there's also that softening and the trusting in our intentions, the trusting in our good actions to receive what is meant for us, and to know that we are part of a greater oneness that is all taken care of. And so the next level for me is to continue with the action and to trust in the process, to trust that my intentions are enough. And humility, that's such a beautiful question. And I love what you shared about the dynamic speaker and kind of like turning it on its head, because I never thought about it that way. And what comes to mind, the first word that bubbled up was gratitude. And there's a sense of living in gratitude when there's humility. And also, I had this image of downward dog, which is the heart is above the head. And I believe when I'm in a place of humility, my heart leads the way and my logical, egotistical mind can take a back seat.
So I teach my own from dance experience, deep stretch class. And a lot of times the thing that I say to us as we're going into this much deeper stretch, lead with your heart, meaning set your chest forward, open yourself up, and then move through that, but lead with the heart. So I love that, Ruth. And I also really believe that a place of gratitude is one of the best places we can all live. In fact, talking about like scientific studies, just look up scientific studies on thankfulness, and you would never read them all, on how that helps a person's health. So that's beautiful. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thank you.
And I want to meet Rachel in a room when she just lets herself be.
Yeah, I mean, I think so the humility and that kind of go together, right? So I was raised in a very lots of different sects of Christianity, but in all of them, my role as a girl and who I was supposed to be as a woman is the same, right? Small, quiet, without pride, without ego, not taking up space, godliness, a woman of, that kind of, it's what our God demands of me as a woman. And that's what I grew up with. And so you say humility, it's not just, it's more, I think it gets a little twisted. So, well, humility is to be without pridefulness. I think what it gets translated and twisted into is a lack of self. You're not allowed to have self. That's the way that, I mean, that took a long time. Like, that took a long time to get past that and heal past that. So that's my connotation. So what you had said, what the speaker about, humility is taking up the space that that you're supposed to, that you're born with.
Yeah.
It's yours. You were born with that energy. Take it, whatever that space fills, whatever the space is there, it's yours for the taking. But when you ask the question, that's what I think of. So, but I just say, well, I don't have humility because I have all of this, right? So in the spaces that I grew up in, I would, I'd be considered prideful, or whatever that is. But I don't apologize for it. I don't feel bad about it anymore. But yeah, it took me a long time. Again, I'm just repeating myself, but it took me a long time to be someone else and to be okay. And that's why those moments of change, those edges, for me, it's a process. Because so many years, decades, growing up being pushed down. There's only so much of me I can take, right? While me is boundless and endless, man, I even have to accept myself in chunks, right? As I grow and I expand, right? Because honestly, there's only so much of myself I can take. So, and while I know those are those edges when I'm ready to accept more of who I am.
Yeah, I love that self-awareness and honoring what you shared about it took you a long time to arrive where you're at when pride is seen as like a sin or something really horrible, that you can embrace the beauty of being proud of who you are and allow that to inspire what you do and who you are to others.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've talked and danced around the edges of what is masculine, what is feminine. And when I was studying psychology, one of the biggest, I will never forget this class because I did an extra credit paper because the professor was talking about these are masculine attributes, these are feminine attributes. And I'm like, why are we defining it when we think of masculine as men and we think of feminine as female, but they're personality traits. Some of them are straight personality traits. And I think if we would get rid of that term masculine and feminine for those, what are personality traits, we could open up this discussion even broader into defining ourselves because it makes us question ourselves.
But I think you have to be in a space where that mindset is accepted. I think you'd have a very hard time being in a space full of men. I don't really want to group them all together, but it would be hard to have that conversation in a room full of men to say, our personality traits, while you see them as feminine, are not feminine. I think there would be some back and forth on that. I think that is part of what we're trying to. I think women have always tried to do it, but I think that's kind of where I am. Even though I say I'm trying to reclaim my femininity, it's more of I'm trying to reclaim parts of my personality that are seen as feminine and are rejected because they are feminine when I take those attributes out into the world or into my business or, I put more of a priority on those traits than I do maybe the logical thinking. While I'm capable of all that, like there's a way I'd rather go out into the world. I'd rather go out into the world with who I am and those feminine with those feminine personality traits. That is the way I'd rather go out into the world. I don't want to be logical all the time. Because that part of me just happens to be hard. And I am not a hard person. I come off as hard. I know I come off very edgy and very, I've got opinions, right? But I'm not afraid to share them. But I do think that I want to be softer because that's who I really am. I'm not so whatever. I don't even know for people who are just listening to this. There's this hardness that I think comes with when I embrace those masculine quote unquote traits. There's a hardness that comes across from me, and that is not who I am. That is not who I am. And actually, I'm tired of being that. I was a bitch for a long time. I'm tired of being one. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Boy, we could really talk about some stuff for a long time. This is really getting deep. But, the lady that I quoted who brought up the thing about feminine energy, this lady is like a PhD. She's a C-suite. She's worked in, and I think what she really means is, and maybe she's talking about, and I think we can all agree with like mother attributes, where as a mother, or a mother who has been a mother of someone else's family child, I think we all mother, whether we are a mother biologically or not. But it's those things of having that deeper sense and having, I love the word receivership, Ruth, and a softer way of being. Because see, here's the thing. If it, there's so many things again that you guys bring up that I could just like stir up and just say, like, there's so much good going on here. But if I recognize, if you were brought up in Christianity, if you didn't read the book correctly, you should go back and read some stuff, because Deborah was a warrior and she won everything. And, Sarah had a baby at 100 almost. And there are women that are mighty and powerful. But if you just listen to some guy talk about it, he might, because remember that sometimes our own insecurities make us want to put labels on a certain way, and then that makes life not so great for the rest of us, right? But really that's because some folks are insecure. So I don't know, maybe you can like lick those off. I don't want to use the word booger, but right there it sounded like you need to blick that off. Like, I know, Christina, right? Sorry, but you know me. I'm gonna get crazy if I get crazy. I'm really sorry. But yeah, there's a receivership in the fact that like there's groups of women now meeting, and they're saying like, how can I help you? And so the softness is the receivership. What Ruth was saying is like recognizing that I don't have to own it all, know it all, be it all. I mean, heck, girls, I have to kill my own spiders. And right now, the reason my room is dark is because I'm living in a part of the country that is cloudy a lot. And it was sunny before, so this was a lighter room. And right when we started this video, it got dark and I'm like, I really can't help that. But if I know that I have to kill my own spiders, but I don't have to figure out something that Rachel knows, and I don't have to figure out something that Christina knows, because I can go to her and ask for that support and help, and I can go to Ruth, who will guide me with her kind wisdom, then isn't that really sort of that feminine quality? And It could be just any quality. It could be a quality of anyone. See, I go back to the word humble because I think anybody could say, I need some help, right?
I just feel like my cup is overflowing. When I began, like before coming into this call, I was low energy. I just finished um, a 4-hour class and I was like, oh, like I hope I show up, whatever, these stories in my mind. And now I just feel like the love is overflowing. And I'm reminded about the beauty of really coming together, sharing our story, supporting each other, listening, being seen and heard, and how transformative it is, like just in the body, and how that ripples out into the world. So I just, I'm really grateful for this opportunity and the safe container that has been crafted by Christina. And yeah, thank you for welcoming me.
Thank you.
This was fun. I had a good time. Just listening to, I don't, I just, these opportunities to talk like this, they don't happen. They don't happen a lot. So, or at least these kind of conversations don't happen a lot, at least in my world at this point. So, it's always nice. It's always nice to kind of just let the walls come down a little bit, let it rip. Just kind of just be who I want to be, and just more, I guess it's not like I go out to the world like inauthentic. Like I am definitely who I am out in the world, but I think some of these conversations about, I guess, that heart space, we don't really talk about it so much. Not even among like my closest women friends. I think we're all so caught up in our lives and just trying to, like, some of us are out there like fighting for our life, whether it's like, in our jobs with our kids. Like we're just so, we're always on the defensive. We're always on the defensive, or we're preparing for something else. And it's really hard just to, it's hard in those moments when you're like, I have a friend, like we talk, but sometimes it's like once a month or every couple weeks, and it's like a 20-minute, like just like it's back and forth really quick. This is everything that's going on in my life. It's like, is it on fire? Do you need me to come? What do you need from me? And then like we hang up and that's it. A lot of my conversations are like that. So it's really rare that I get a chance to just talk with other women and just let that heart space just kind of have its way and be open. And I don't know. That's it. I don't know. There's an end to that thought, but yeah, it's nice. I like it.
I hope it's okay if I do this, Christina. First of all, I just want to say that you are a visionary and you're continuing to see ahead. And I love that. And stepping forward like that it's so meaningful. So anyway, I love this enrichment and I love speaking from the heart. I've reached a point, I have been through a lot. We don't have any time for that, but so I'm becoming, as I mentioned, but this is what I know. Lead from the heart. Trust your insides. And I love that Ruth brought out trust. Because see, we can't control a whole lot of stuff, but we can control some things. And part of that is what we control inside. And so I'm just so excited to see where this goes. And also, I want to just offer my most sincere love and respect to each one of you as just my last thought. Namaste. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And what a wonderful Be Seen, Be Heard episode. It's going to be that or humble. I don't know what to title it. You can name it as we go. But I want to thank Renee, Ruth, and Rachel for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Health, Wealth, and Happiness Interviews to Inspire. Please take a moment to subscribe, like, follow us. These amazing stories from these women come to you each week, and I am so proud to present them.